I had tracked a Robert Bob Olson to a clinic in Mankato. I called the clinic, explained who I was and that I was not a stalker, and asked the receptionist if she would please give Bob my phone number and ask him to call me. Well, lo and behold, he and his wife Sue called me back. I had found the right Sue and Bob Olson, and they said we sure could come for a visit and share their yard with all our viewers. Thanks so much for calling me back and letting us come to visit.
Of course, I'm so glad to have you here in Mankato with us.
Well, tell me, how did you get started with gardening?
Gardening goes way back for me. I have come from a long line of gardeners back into Denmark. My grandmother and father would be proud right now. I grew up, everybody gardened, and they did their perennials. There's certain perennials that were important to them, which I've carried into my own gardening, vegetables, etc. I always helped my dad in the yard growing up. I have a brother who's an avid gardener, and it's become a part of me more so than I ever would have dreamed as probably a young child. I had no idea, but I'm passionate about it, and it's carried over. I was diagnosed with cancer, almost 10 years ago now, and that was a part of my gardening experience, in that when I was diagnosed in the spring, I thought, oh my gosh, my gardens, I've got to get my gardens taken care of before I undergo treatment. And I came out and I dove into the gardens and work. And one evening, as I was pretty much finishing up, this is April in Minnesota, a butterfly landed on my shoulder. And I thought, a butterfly? What? It just doesn't add up. And the butterfly danced around me and flew away, and it came back and it landed on me and it landed on me, and then it just sat there. And I thought, this is a sign that everything is going to be okay. And it was. Here I am today, very happily. And but I've made that an important piece of my gardens as well. And I've memorialized different family members, even our pets, in the gardens. Everything I do is purposeful and has meaning and significance. I don't do it just to plunk something in the ground. There's purpose with everything I do.
So how did you start here at this property?
We moved in here 25 years ago, and it was an open, blank slate for me. None of this was here other than the center garden, and that was a big, honestly overgrown mess. And I gave it the first summer, and I said, let's just see what comes up in here, and then the next spring we'll attack this. And attack we did. We cleaned that all up, and every year since, I've added something to the gardens. And I've morphed things, I've changed things. I'm always, oh, I don't like that anymore, let's change this up. Or, oh, I have a great idea. And then my husband rolls his eyes and says, oh boy.
So do you use annuals or perennials or both?
Both, mostly perennials, but I do like the annuals because that gives you that continuous pop of color. But my goal is to have color all through the seasons.
Do you design your own beds, or do you have professional help to help with laying them out?
It's all me. I've done it all myself. I just have I get a vision, and I work around that and work with it. The only thing that we didn't do ourselves was the hardscaping, but I had a vision for that, and we brought people in to do that. But otherwise, everything else has been my dreams, and the help of my husband to pull it all together.
How do you keep up with all the watering?
Well, we do have an irrigation system, and I try to be pretty mindful about what I'm planting. For example, I love impatiens, but impatiens are water hogs. And this is the first year that I have not done any impatiens. And then ironically, we had this year of all the rain, but then you're a slave to your watering, and I just want to be able to enjoy it. So, for example, I have a lot of begonias. The begonias can adjust to I don't have to stand in water for half my evening, so I think about that.
So you said that your plantings are purposeful. What are some of the beds or the reasons you've planted?
Going back to my cancer diagnosis, I have a bed over here that's dedicated to the butterflies, and so I have a butterfly theme going in that area. And that was the area where the butterfly landed, actually. We lost a grandson a year ago, and I have a bed dedicated to him, memorializing him. There's a tree dedicated to each of our parents, and there's a section of one of the gardens that has owls. Owls are symbolic for my father, so we recognize that. And I have a lot of perennials from my mother-in-law's garden, so she's kind of sprinkled everywhere. My little bit of Nancy everywhere. So that's the idea of what I do.
How do you pick the plants specific to each garden?
Well, of course, I think about things like the lighting, is it a shade area or a sun area? And the garden is continually evolving to that end, because when we first started, there wasn't any shade. Now we have a lot of shade, so I'm always shifting and adjusting things that way. But I also think about, for example, Bob's mother always told the story of good friends of theirs who gave her a bleeding heart when my husband was born, and she still had the bleeding heart, and I have a piece of that. So that memorializes her. It also recognizes my husband, and I've split that many times now, and I have that sprinkled throughout the gardens. And that's something else I do, is try to bring the same themes through, so I don't have just one area with, a blob of pink bleeding hearts. I have them scattered throughout. But I also think about, well, for example, the tree that I have that memorializes my husband's father is a serviceberry. Well, he was in the military. So I think of the name, and that kind of represents him. The birch tree is in the owl garden for my dad. The birch tree is big and tall and strong, and I think about that with him. It's I make those types of connections. So,
How do you keep track of what you plant where?
well, I'm a little obsessive in that regard. Every one of my plants is labeled with the common name and the scientific name on the front. The back is the size, how high and how wide it gets, when it blooms, and when I planted it, or if it was gifted from a friend, I have their name on it when they gave it to me. In addition, I keep a box of all the tags. If I buy a plant, all the tags are in the box by year, so I can go back and reference that. And I also, if someone gives me something, I'll put a note card in there as well, just so I know what I have. It would be very interesting to know how many plants I have. We had talked about doing that earlier this year, but I'm a little overwhelmed when I look at it right now. So,
How do you keep up with all of the weeding?
well, the weeding falls to me, but that'll be a good thing to talk about with my husband. But I spend about an hour every day just out weeding and deadheading, and that pretty much takes care of it. But he would be the one to tell you some of our secrets for the weeding.